1. The man has no say or power. Whenever I've personally seen cases like these where the guy is clearly less attractive than the woman, it seems there's always something not right going on. Either the woman wins every argument by default, there is zero intimacy in the relationship, it's a half-open relationship but only in the girl's favour, or whatever else. And to show you an example of this, just take a look at this Quora post. This might be the most pathetic post I've ever shown on this channel to date. Someone asked, "I just found out my wife created a Tinder account, what should I do?" And this guy, who's also been in this situation, married 10 years with a daughter too, he says he just lets it happen. He thinks it's justified as he wants his wife to have some relief from her workload and easing some tension. What's more is he deludes himself into thinking it's actually a good thing. He claims it adds some spice to their marriage. Guys, the cope levels on this one are unbelievable. In fact, I'm still not 100% sure if he's really being serious or just satirical. When I read this for the first time, I was praying he'd eventually get to the punchline and it'd all be one big laugh. But it seems this is not the case and he's really being steamrolled this hard. Anyway, this wraps up my first point. More often than not, it is only the low-value, unattractive guys that will stoop to shamefully low levels like this. Moving on to exception number 2. This one's obvious, but still relevant and too common to ignore. They're friends or related. I often see guys who are very new to this community reject the ideas of looks theory because, quite obviously, they sometimes see people together in public who are miles apart in attractiveness. This is an easy mistake to make. Firstly, whenever I've walked in public myself, I've found, surprisingly, it's a far rarer occurrence than you'd first expect. Birds of a feather flock together. Most people associate themselves with others who they are on a similar attractiveness level to anyway, whether they're together romantically or not. Second, even in cases where unattractive guys can be seen with attractive women, just because they're together in public doesn't mean they're in a relationship. Maybe they're related, maybe he's just her friend, maybe he's similar to the first case I talked about, where they are in fact together, but the man has zero say or power. Maybe he's currently hitting on her and seconds away from getting rejected. Anyway, just because you see people of different attractiveness levels in public, it doesn't prove anything. Now moving on to exception 3. The girl has a niche preference or type. This is the case where a woman may be willing to compromise by a couple points below her level because a man falls into a specific type or preference. For example, this may be a strong height fetish, occurring usually at the 6'6" plus range. Hair colour, sub 8% body fat / a bodybuilder's physique, a man having large tattoo coverage, e-boy appearance, and lastly having strong identity beliefs. If a woman has a thing for any of these, she may adjust her standards accordingly by lowering the bar. In fact, in relation to this last one, identity beliefs, I have a great example from my own experiences showing this. A couple years ago, I used to work at this vegan restaurant, and there was an extremely attractive girl who worked there. Soon enough, I found out she was currently dating one of the male employees who also worked there. This was to my utmost surprise, because no disrespect, but this man was at least 2-3 points less attractive than her. They weren't even close to being on the same level. At first, I tried to rationalise in my head how this could be possible. Then, suddenly, I remembered a conversation I've had previously with another girl who was also vegan. In this conversation, I recall her saying, never in a million years would she ever date a man who isn't vegan. So, back to the restaurant, I figured this must be an identical case at hand. Later, I did some research and found vegan women outnumber men 3-1. So, based on this ratio, if we assume the majority of vegans only want to date others who share the same beliefs as them, there'll inevitably be an imbalance working in men's favour. An attractive woman may have no choice but to date a lower SMV man if she finds all her looks matches are already taken. Anyway, that's point 3, and now I've got these out the way. Now is a good time to press the like button and leave any thoughts you have in the comments below, as it helps the YouTube algorithm. Exception number 4. Pre-planned monkey branching. This is perhaps the most dark and shallow point listed. And for anyone watching who is unsure of what monkey branching is, it's when a woman plans from the out that a relationship with a man, usually a low value man, will be temporary, because she knows she can do better. But instead of being upfront, she keeps this to herself at the back of her mind, knowing she'll break up with the man at some point in the future. And the main purpose of this is so she'll eventually be able to trade up for a higher value guy later down the line. And in the meantime, the woman reluctantly goes into the relationship with a lower value guy, as it comes with comfort, status, support, and several other benefits. Now, here's an example showing where a woman may commonly do this. This is Chloe. Chloe has gotten to the point now where she's just fed up with guys. She's fed up with the guys who she sees herself on the same level with, not taking her seriously. The guys keep messing her about and tiptoeing around the idea of commitment. So instead, she turns and gives a chance for the medium unattractive guy who she's kept in the friend zone for the best part of the last 5 years. She knows how he's always been there for her, been supportive and emotionally available, and will always love her unconditionally. So she lets up and goes into this relationship that he begged for her to go into. The problem is though, her reluctance leads to the relationship's downfall. From the get-go, she always had that feeling in the pit of her stomach she can do better. This mindset led to the quality of the relationship being absolute garbage, and eventually she breaks up and trades up for a better man. This reason is why I never trust these relationships where the woman is more attractive than the man, because more often than not, there is zero stability and the relationship is perpetually on the brink of collapse. Now moving on to exception 5. The dating market is significantly different now. I've noticed recently there is this TikTok trend where people show their parents and what they looked like from when they were younger. And the idea is that there's supposed to be a noticeable difference in attractiveness. Just take a look.
Respectfully, but how did my dad even manage to pull my mom? Like, bro? He was so damn ugly.
So, after that clip, at first it seems like pretty convincing evidence contradicting the black pill. Especially the belief that women only date guys who they believe are equal or above in terms of their looks. No. This is the thing. 40 years ago, the black pill was far less relevant. In fact, I'd even say the red/blue pill was more relevant. Social media didn't exist, nor did online dating. Chivalry was still kinda a thing, and people's only option in terms of meeting people was face to face. Therefore, it makes sense that back then, it will have been more likely for looks discrepancies like these to happen. However, now taking a look at modern dating, what's going on in 2022, it's undeniable the black pill is dominating the nature of current dating market forces. Ego inflation, simping, online dating, entitlement and delusion are at all-time highs. This is why, even now, when I see couples where the man is less attractive than the woman, it's always a case they met in a warm environment. Never online, never cold approach. I read a comment on my channel a couple days ago and I largely agreed with it. To succeed in a warm approach, you need to be at least a 5, at the absolute lowest a 4. For cold approach, the minimum is a 6. For online dating, don't even bother unless you're at least 7+. Finally, moving on to exception number 6, plain ignorance. This follows on from my last point. Here's what happened when I was trying to find the mum and dad TikTok clips so I could use them in this video. I'd say at least 70 to 80% of them weren't accurate at all. The mother and father were actually fairly similar in attractiveness. In fact, in some of them, the dad was better than the mum. Take a look at this. I can't tell if the woman who made this has only done it to jump on the trend or she's actually being serious. Because it should be extremely obvious these two people are a looks-matched couple. They both fall somewhere in the 6 to 7 range. The dad has excellent facial definition, a thick neck, clear, healthy skin, a full head of hair. You can see from the side angle too he has good forward growth of his jawline with a long ramus as well. On the downside, his face is a little long and his eyebrows appear too thin, but other than that there isn't really anything else negative to say. On top of this, you can see from the photos he's definitely quite tall and also has a large frame. So overall, SMV wise, I'd say he's minimum 7. Anyway, this is one example taken from TikTok. But as I say, around 3/4 of the uploads were no different. Honestly, most people haven't got a clue about measuring other people's SMV. They either overestimate the woman's or underestimate the man's attractiveness. And to nail this point of why it's extremely crucial to be able to determine both your own and other people's SMV, here's a quick story showing what happens when you lack this skill. In a recent private consultation I've had with a below average looks man in his upper 30s, he described this particular night out he had blackpilled him for life. So he was at a bustling bar on a night out and he mistakenly tried approaching a woman who was way above his SMV. He was in the 3 to 4 range, the woman at least a 7. The man didn't know this at the time. He described himself as being fairly blue-pilled even at the age of 30. So he naively thought it's best to approach any woman he found highly attractive. Anyway, he said he tried making advances to this girl a couple of times, which at first, luckily for him, only led to soft rejections. So he'd offer a drink and she'd reply, "Nah, I'm fine, thanks for the offer, but I'm just waiting for my friends to get back." Or he'd ask for her number, she'd reply, "Sorry, but I don't really know you." Now, I'm going to pause the story right here, because this is exactly where I'd have halted the interaction. I'd have said, "Okay, no problem, enjoy the rest of your night." See, this in my opinion shows the knowledge that comes with the black pill, because it's not about defeatism or accepting failure. It's about understanding the importance of looks to achieve as finely tuned awareness in social situations as is possible. When you're black-pilled, I've found you can begin to gauge with extraordinary precision exactly where both you yourself and everyone else sits in the social hierarchy. Therefore, whatever the scenario, you'll be able to far better avoid humiliation or coming across as delusional. Which, as I carry on with the story, you'll see the very opposite of in a second. Anyway, after this man gets soft rejected twice, instead of cutting his losses, he then goes for a more forward approach. He tries to rest his hand on her back, tries being overly flirtatious, and it gets to a point where the woman gets concerned, people are starting to stare, and they're getting the wrong idea of how she feels about him. So in order to leave the interaction as quickly as possible, she snaps and throws her fist down. She scolds the man in a raised voice. "I don't want your attention. I really don't find you attractive. Just leave me alone, find somebody else to hit on." The man leaves the bar immediately, finishing his night early. Now, before I evaluate the story, I just want to point out, there wasn't anything inherently wrong with the things he said or did in the interaction. What he was missing was context. His biggest mistake was failing to recognise if and when his advances would be appropriate. And I guarantee, if the woman found him physically attractive and she gave him non-verbal invitation, the things he did, such as resting his hand on her back, would have been met with happiness and gratitude. Anyway, the point of the story is, this highlights the danger of the over-optimism of the blue pill and partially the red pill too. This is what happens when these ideas get the better of you. As a man, you may be thinking you're playing the interaction correctly, you may be thinking a little more persistence will soon pay off, but in reality, you couldn't be caught further off the mark. Anyway, if you want to make sure you never have to deal with embarrassing situations like this, Head over to my Fiverr page now to get an objective rating so you will know exactly where you stand. The prices are as follows. It will be the first link in the description below. Also, with Valentine's Day just one day away, anyone who orders within the next 48 hours will get one free additional rating for someone possibly to score with. This 2-for-1 deal applies only for package 1. Lastly, make sure you also check out part 1 afterwards, where there are 8 more exceptions of hot girl, ugly guy listed in this video.